The boardroom had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Chicago, 23 stories of steel and glass that made men feel powerful. Olivia Brennan stood at the head of the mahogany table, her father's name still warm on the company letterhead, and announced what should have been a coronation. Marcus Thompson, Chief Operating Officer, effective immediately. The salary figure hovered on the projection screen behind her. $340,000. Stock options. Corner office. A career trajectory that most analysts would sacrifice years to achieve. Marcus stood slowly. Every board member leaned forward, anticipating gratitude. Instead, his voice carried the weight of a decision already made. I can't accept. I leave at 5:30. Every day. Silence swallowed the room. Someone's pen clattered against the table. What, you're turning down $340,000 because of a schedule? Marcus met Olivia's eyes across 12 feet of polished wood. Something passed between them that the board would never understand. A history these men in expensive suits hadn't earned the right to witness. Some promises are worth more. The frame froze on his face, a man choosing devotion over ambition, and the story rewound to show how that choice had been forged. 6 months earlier, Marcus Thompson's alarm shattered the darkness at 5:15. His apartment in Pilsen held the particular quiet of a home missing someone essential. He moved through the routine with practiced efficiency, entering Lily's room, where his daughter slept beneath a ceiling covered in glow-in-the-dark stars. Sweetheart, school day. Lily's gap-toothed smile emerged from beneath her comforter, 8 years old and already learning to navigate a world that had stolen her mother before she could form permanent memories. She dressed herself now, a milestone Jennifer had missed. Marcus stood in the doorway, watching, cataloging these small victories for a woman who might never hear them. The kitchen refrigerator served as both meal planner and financial ledger. Bills clung to the metal surface with alphabet magnets Lily had arranged to spell "Mommy, come home." Rent, $847, due in 6 days. Medical invoices stacked 3 deep, $12,400, patient responsibility after insurance. Groceries, $132 to last 2 weeks. Lily poured cereal with the concentration of a chemist measuring compounds. Can we visit Mommy after school today? Marcus set his coffee down, met his daughter's eyes with the honesty he'd promised himself would define their relationship. Every day, sweetheart, I promised. Brennan and Associates Financial Group occupied the 18th floor of a building that smelled like ambition and expensive cologne. Marcus arrived at 8:45, neither early enough to seem desperate nor late enough to suggest disrespect. His desk held no photographs, no personal artifacts, nothing that would invite questions he'd spent 4 years deflecting. The quarterly performance chart mounted in the conference room told a story of consistency that bordered on the mechanical, top 3% client satisfaction, 4 consecutive years, 0 errors in financial projections, 3 declined promotions to team lead, to 2 refused senior analyst positions. Olivia Brennan had inherited her father's corner office along with his company, 31 years old, and carrying the weight of a name that opened doors while simultaneously questioning whether she deserved to walk through them. She studied Marcus's personnel file with the focus she applied to balance sheets, searching for the pattern that would explain why their strongest performer actively resisted advancement. The afternoon bled into evening the way it always did, 1,000 small tasks accumulating into hours. At 5:28, Marcus closed his laptop with the finality of a man executing a sacred ritual. His coat came on. His briefcase snapped shut. Tina from HR caught him at the elevator. Happy hour tonight. The new Italian place downtown. I have commitments. The words carried no apology, no room for negotiation. The elevator doors closed on Tina's puzzled expression, and Marcus descended into a life these colleagues would never comprehend. St. Catherine's long-term care facility sat on the western edge of the city where the buildings shortened and the trees multiplied. 4 years had transformed the drive into muscle memory. Marcus navigated rush-hour traffic while his mind cataloged the day's small moments, the stories Jennifer deserved to hear even if her ears could no longer process the sound. Room 217 occupied the east corridor where afternoon light lasted longest. The nurses no longer asked him to sign in. Jennifer lay exactly as she had for 1,472 days, her chest rising and falling with the rhythm of the ventilator that breathed for her. Or the chart hanging at the foot of her bed documented a life reduced to abbreviations. TBI from MVA, GCS, score 3, ventilator dependent, $11,200 monthly care cost. Marcus pulled the chair close. His fingers found hers, warm flesh wrapped around unresponsive bones. Hey, sweetheart. Long day today. He read from the romance novel they'd started before the drunk driver turned their life into before and after. Chapter 14. The part where separated lovers found each other across impossible distance. The pages had softened from handling. 4 years of hoping Jennifer could somehow hear the words through whatever darkness held her. Her hair had grown longer. Marcus brushed it the way she used to like, swept back from her face, and whispered updates about Lily's science project, about the bills he'd juggle, about the life they'd built that refused to collapse, even with her foundation missing. At 7 o'clock, he collected Lily from the after-school program. His daughter burst through the doors with the energy of someone who'd been still too long. "Daddy!" Mr. Peters told the funniest joke about a penguin. "Did you tell Mom?" "I did." She would have laughed. They cooked spaghetti together, too much garlic, the way Jennifer made it. Lily set 3 places at their small table, including the empty chair they never removed. After homework and bath time and 1 chapter of Charlotte's Web, Marcus tucked his daughter into bed and turned off the light. The kitchen swallowed him in silence. Bills spread across the counter like evidence of a crime he couldn't solve. The wedding photo on the refrigerator captured Jennifer mid-laugh, her veil caught in wind, both of them so young they barely looked like adults. He didn't cry anymore. Tears changed nothing. Energy belonged to the living, to promises that still demanded keeping. Tuesday morning arrived with the weight of accumulated dread. Olivia summoned Marcus to her office, and he arrived exactly on time. "I'm offering you team lead, $95,000 salary. I appreciate the opportunity, but I need to leave at 5:30. Olivia leaned forward, genuine confusion crossing her face. Most people would kill for this. Not everyone measures success the same way, Miss Brennan. The response should have ended the conversation, but HR Director Karen Mitchell intercepted Marcus in the hallway 20 minutes later. Her office smelled like vanilla air freshener masking something sour. "We're concerned about your commitment levels. 4 years, never attending networking events. It suggests lack of ambition. My performance reviews speak for themselves. It's not about numbers. It's about cultural fit. Your daughter's situation, we understand, but this is a professional environment. The coded language settled like sediment. Team player, availability, dedication." Marcus had learned to hear what people meant beneath what they said. Is there anything else? The red envelope waited on his desk like a diagnosis. Hartford Healthcare Insurance, official letterhead, Catherine Walsh's signature at the bottom. He opened it standing up, unable to sit for what his hands already knew was coming. Jennifer Thompson, Policy HL, 847293. 4-year coma exceeds statistical recovery probability. A continued coverage deemed medically unnecessary. Decision hearing. 21 days. $538,000 paid to date. Termination recommended. Marcus's hands trembled. 21 days. 3 weeks to prove his wife's life held value beyond actuarial tables and profit margins. He pulled legal paper from his desk drawer, muscle memory from a previous life guiding his pen. 42 U.S.C. Section 1983. Civil rights violations. 29 CFR 2560. ERISA statutory requirements. State Insurance Code. Section 10123.13. The statutes flowed like a language he'd once spoken fluently, before he traded litigation for predictable hours and the promise of being present. Olivia passed his desk at exactly the wrong moment. Her eyes caught the legal codes, the technical precision of Marcus's handwriting, the way federal statutes appeared beneath an analyst's fingers like native tongue. Those are federal regulations. How do you... Marcus closed the notebook with practiced speed. I read a lot, but later, when he thought she'd moved beyond earshot, Marcus made a phone call. Olivia paused near the break room, coffee forgotten, listening to a man transform from analyst to something altogether different. Yes, under ERISA Section 503, they must provide full documentation of denial rationale. I'm aware of the Ninth Circuit ruling in Abadi versus Alta Health. Persistent vegetative state classification requires Glasgow Coma Scale below 8 with supplemental EEG confirmation. The medical terminology fell from his mouth like rain, and Olivia returned to her office with questions multiplying like compound interest. She opened her laptop and searched ERISA Expert Attorneys Chicago. Then, more specifically, Marcus Thompson background. The results showed an analyst. 4 years at Brennan and Associates. Before that, nothing her search could reach. That night, Marcus sat at his kitchen table with Jennifer's medical files spread before him like a map to nowhere. He cross-referenced Hartford healthcare denials, searching for the pattern his legal training insisted must exist. The database revealed itself in pieces. 73 families. Same insurance company. All coma or traumatic brain injury patients. All at the 3 to 4 year mark. All coded medically unnecessary prolonged care. He calculated what his hands already knew. Average monthly cost, $12,400. Average duration before denial, 48 months. Per patient savings, $595,000. 73 patients multiplied by 595,000 equaled $43.4 million in denied coverage. The surnames told their own story. 64% minority families, all working class, all assigned to the same medical reviewer, Dr. Richard Hartwell. Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway, her hair sleep-mussed. "Daddy, why are you still awake?" Marcus closed the laptop, gathered his daughter into arms that had learned to hold what remained. "Just making sure Mommy is taken care of, baby. Is someone trying to hurt her? No one is going to hurt her. I promise. You always keep your promises." Marcus held his daughter in the fluorescent kitchen light and felt the weight of 73 families pressing against his chest. And this wasn't just Jennifer anymore. This was systemic. This was calculated. This was the kind of institutional cruelty he'd once defended for billable hours and partnership tracks. His phone vibrated with the first message: St. Catherine's Administrator. Urgent meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. regarding Jennifer Thompson. The second message arrived 10 seconds later. Hartford Insurance. Decision hearing scheduled. Friday, 3 weeks from now. Bring legal representation. The third message came from an email address he'd learned to recognize. Olivia Brennan, sent at 11:47 p.m. Marcus. Saw you researching ERISA law. If you need help, I know attorneys. Marcus stared at 3 messages that represented 3 different futures, 3 paths converging toward a moment he couldn't yet see. So his reflection stared back from the darkened laptop screen. A man who'd spent 4 years choosing presence over ambition, and now faced a choice between silence and exposure. But Marcus didn't know that tomorrow, everything he'd been hiding would be forced into light. The woman watching him from across town was about to discover the truth that would transform her understanding of what mattered. And the fight he'd been preparing for in private was about to demand witnesses. 3 weeks until the decision that would determine whether 73 families, including his own, would be allowed to keep hoping. 3 weeks to prove that some lives couldn't be measured in quarterly earnings and statistical probabilities. 3 weeks to show them that when you find what's worth fighting for, you fight not just for yourself, but for everyone who can't. Wednesday morning delivered consequences in the form of a phone call from Lily's school. Marcus stood in the St. Catherine's parking lot, the administrator's meeting still echoing in his skull when Ms. Rodriguez's voice cracked through the speaker. Your daughter had an incident yesterday. We need to discuss it. The classroom smelled like paste and anxiety. Ms. Rodriguez, a woman who taught second grade for 15 years, chose her words with the care of someone defusing explosives. Another student made comments about Jennifer, about life support, about pulling the plug. Marcus's jaw tightened, but his voice remained level. What did Lily say? She defended her mother, told the boy that sleeping isn't the same as gone, that her daddy promised mommy would wake up. Then she cried through lunch. Marcus found Lily in the after-school program that afternoon, building a tower from blocks that kept collapsing. She didn't look up when he arrived. Ms. Rodriguez called. Lily's hands stilled. Tommy said, Mommy's a vegetable, that his dad says it's stupid to keep her alive. Marcus knelt beside his daughter, eye level with the grief she carried like a backpack too heavy for her frame. What you said is absolutely right, baby. Sleeping isn't gone. But what if Tommy's dad is right? What if the insurance people say the same thing? The grocery store incident happened 3 days later. Marcus and Lily navigated the cereal aisle when an elderly white woman's stage whisper carried across the Cheerios. Shame, single father. Probably abandoned the mother when things got hard. Lily's hand found Marcus's, her grip communicating what her 8-year-old vocabulary couldn't articulate. Marcus guided them toward checkout without acknowledgement, teaching his daughter through action that some ignorance didn't deserve engagement. In the car, Lily stared at her shoes. Why did she say that? Some people don't understand loyalty, but we do. The meeting at St. Catherine's had painted the timeline in unforgiving clarity. Dr. Patricia Chen, the facility administrator, spread Jennifer's financial records across her desk like an autopsy. Hartford is pressuring us, Marcus. If coverage terminates, we cannot continue care at $12,400 monthly. I'll pay it myself. Dr. Chen's expression held the particular sympathy of someone forced to deliver mathematical truth. You make $68,000 annually. The numbers don't work. Jennifer requires level 3 intensive care. Ventilator, feeding tube, repositioning every 2 hours, specialized pressure relief mattress, daily physical therapy consults to prevent contractures. We're talking skilled nursing, not custodial care. How long do I have? If Hartford denies in 3 weeks, 30 days to arrange transfer, or... The sentence hung unfinished because both understood the alternative. 400 miles northeast, Catherine Walsh commanded a conference room in Hartford Insurance's Boston headquarters. 63 years old, executive vice president and architect of cost reduction strategies that had saved the company $87 million over 6 years. The quarterly earnings call demanded answers, and Catherine provided them with the precision of a surgeon removing diseased tissue. Gentlemen, we've paid $43.4 million on persistent vegetative state patients over 4 years. 0 recovery rate across the entire cohort. Her presentation slide displayed the metric that mattered. Reduce long-term care outlays 18% by fiscal year end. Medical science supports our position. After 12 months, recovery probability drops to 0.003%. We're not heartless. We're realistic. The hospital CFOs on the video call nodded with the enthusiasm of men protecting their own budgets. Dr. Richard Hartwell spoke from St. Catherine's conference room, his silver hair and tailored suit projecting authority his ethics couldn't support. These extended coma patients occupy beds for years. Thompson case, 1,472 days. That's 4 acute care patients we could treat instead. Dr. Chen's voice cut through the corporate consensus. She's a person, Richard. She's a statistic. And statistics indicate termination. The email chain that Marcus would later discover painted the conspiracy in Arial 12-point font. Hartford to hospital administrators. Cooperation on cost reduction equals preferred provider status. Hartwell's reply, will facilitate transfers to county facilities. The county facilities provided minimal care, 6-month median survival, warehouses for the dying that insurance companies preferred to call compassionate alternatives. Catherine placed her personal call to Marcus on Thursday afternoon. He answered on the second ring, standing in his apartment surrounded by the evidence he'd been accumulating like ammunition. Mr. Thompson, I understand this is difficult. Her voice carried the practiced empathy of someone who delivered bad news to thousands. Your wife has been unresponsive for 1,472 days. Continued artificial life support is prolonging the inevitable. She's my wife, not a line item. We have a fiduciary duty to all policyholders. Friday's hearing will determine medical necessity. I suggest you prepare yourself for the outcome. Marcus hung up without goodbye and returned to the wall he'd constructed in his living room. Photographs, documents, timelines, 73 families reduced to data points in someone else's profit calculation. The evidence gathering consumed him. Marcus worked his analyst shift, left at 5:30, visited Jennifer, fed Lily dinner, tucked her in, then transformed into the person he'd buried 4 years ago. On the person who understood how institutions protected themselves, who spoke the language of federal statutes and procedural requirements. Nurse Rosa found him in St. Catherine's medical records room at 2 a.m, 6 days before the hearing. She was Latina, 40 years old, and carried the particular courage of someone who'd lost enough to understand what Marcus was fighting for. You need Jennifer's full chart? Marcus looked up from the photocopier, exhaustion making his vision swim, and any others Hartford has denied. Rosa produced a USB drive from her scrub pocket. 17 others here, all the same pattern, All minority families, all working class. You could lose your job. My mother died because insurance called her treatment experimental. I couldn't fight. You can. And the legal research happened in segments stolen from sleep. Marcus's laptop glowed in the darkness, multiple browser tabs documenting the architecture of his case. Pegram versus Herdrich from 2000, establishing HMO fiduciary duty. Rush Prudential versus Moran from 2002, requiring independent medical review. State Insurance Code Section 10123.13, mandating 3 independent physician evaluations for any denial. His legal pad filled with notes and handwriting that grew increasingly frantic. Breach of fiduciary duty, bad faith denial, fraudulent inducement. The attorney he'd been before Jennifer's accident surfaced like muscle memory, and Marcus realized he'd never actually stopped being a lawyer. He'd just chosen to be a father instead. Friday night, Olivia stayed late reviewing acquisition projections that wouldn't matter if she couldn't focus. At 7:30, she glanced out her window and saw Marcus's sedan still in the parking lot, a violation of the sacred 5:30 departure that defined him. She found him slumped over the steering wheel, not sleeping, just gathering strength for whatever waited next. Olivia knocked on the window before she could reconsider. Marcus startled, quickly wiping his eyes. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Just tired. You're never late. What's happening?" The question hung between them, and Marcus made a calculation that would change both their trajectories. "You really want to know?" 20 minutes later, Olivia stood in the doorway of room 217, watching Marcus interact with a world she'd never imagined. Jennifer's ventilator hissed its mechanical rhythm. Lily sat cross-legged on the visitor chair, showing her mother a new drawing. 3 figures in front of a house, crayons capturing hope that medical charts declared statistically impossible. "Are you Daddy's boss?" Lily's gap-toothed smile carried no judgment, just curiosity. "Your daddy is an amazing man." Later, in the parking lot under sodium lights that turned everything amber, Marcus explained what Olivia's personnel files had never captured. "Before Jennifer's accident, I was a healthcare attorney, mid-level firm, insurance defense work." Olivia's expression shifted through several emotions before settling on comprehension. "You defended insurance companies?" "For 3 years. Then I learned what they really do." When Jennifer got hurt, Hartford denied her claim in 2.1 minutes. The reviewing physician was Dr. Hartwell, same doctor who'd rubber-stamped 300 denials I'd defended in court. I recognized the system I'd helped build, and I couldn't stomach it anymore. "So you quit law?" "I chose what mattered. Took the analyst job here because it's predictable hours, 5:30 out, lets me be with her every evening." Marcus opened his trunk, revealing the evidence binder he'd been constructing. 400 pages organized by federal statute, witness statements from 23 families, statistical analysis showing 73 denials, 71 minority families, 68 working class, email documentation of Hartford executives discussing cost reduction targets. This is federal fraud. Why haven't you sued? Lawyers cost $45,000 retainer. I have $847 in savings. What if you had a lawyer? Olivia made 3 phone calls before midnight. The third connected her to James Chen, 65 years old, Harvard law class of 1984, her father's attorney for 30 years. Chen reviewed Marcus's evidence over video conference, his expression darkening with each page. "My God, this is racketeering." Marcus presented his analysis with the technical precision of someone who'd spent 3 years in the trenches. ERISA Section 502A(1)(b) allows civil enforcement. Section 503 requires proper claims procedure. They denied without independent medical review. 29 CFR 256.0.503-1 mandates full disclosure of denial reasons. California Insurance Code 10123.13 requires 3 independent physicians for any denial. They used one, Hartwell, who receives consulting fees from Hartford. Chen leaned back, decades of litigation experience recognizing the foundation of something massive. You've built a $50 million class action. Lily emerged from her bedroom, drawn by the voices. She brought Marcus coffee in his favorite mug, the one that said, "World's Best Dad" in Lily's kindergarten handwriting. "Are we winning, Daddy? We're fighting, baby. That's what matters." Lily turned to Olivia with the directness children employ before they learn to dissemble. "Thank you for helping my dad. He's helping 72 other families. That's what heroes do." Monday morning detonated Marcus's fragile stability. HR Director Karen Mitchell summoned him with an email marked urgent. And her office smelled like the vanilla air freshener couldn't quite mask institutional cowardice. "Hartford Insurance contacted us. You're creating legal issues for a valued partner. Hartford isn't our client. They're our insurance provider. $2.3 million annual contract. You're being placed on administrative leave pending investigation." "Investigation of what?" "Misuse of company resources. You used our Wi-Fi for legal research. That's retaliation. Another violation to document. Clean out your desk by 5 p.m. Olivia intercepted the termination before Marcus reached his office. She stormed into Karen's space with the particular fury of someone whose integrity had been weaponized. "You just created a wrongful termination lawsuit. I take orders from the board. I am the board. As CFO, I override this decision. Marcus Thompson is reinstated effective immediately. Your father won't support this. My father built this company on integrity. What you're doing violates everything he stood for." The threat escalated that afternoon. Marcus's phone displayed an unknown Boston number, and Catherine Walsh's voice carried the weight of $4.7 billion in corporate resources. "Mr. Thompson, I admire your tenacity, but you're fighting an institution with unlimited legal budget. Then it's a fair fight. Drop this, and we'll grandfather Jennifer's coverage. Personal guarantee from me. Full care, indefinite. And the 72 other families? Not my problem. Then we have nothing to discuss. Friday's hearing. Bring whatever lawyers you want. The outcome is predetermined." Marcus hung up and returned to the wall of evidence. Ao Chen had filed Freedom of Information Act requests, and the responses painted a conspiracy that stretched back 30 years. Hartford's denial pattern from 1994 to 2024, 2,847 coma and traumatic brain injury denials, $1.2 billion in terminated coverage, 89% minority families, 94% working class. The whistleblower arrived on Tuesday. Dr. Sarah Kim, 45 years old, Korean American, former Hartford medical reviewer who'd quit in 2019 carrying guilt that finally found outlet. She met Marcus in a coffee shop on the north side, sliding an encrypted USB drive across the table. "I processed 400 denials for Hartford. Never saw patient files, just algorithm recommendations. In 2008, they created the model. Automatic denial after 18 months for persistent vegetative state." Marcus opened the files that night. internal memos documenting the statistical recovery model that excluded cases with family advocacy, the translation obvious to anyone willing to see. They denied people whose families couldn't fight back, whose poverty and exhaustion would force capitulation. Chen briefed the expanded team on Wednesday. Marcus, Olivia, 2 junior associates, and a paralegal who'd survived her own insurance nightmare. This isn't one company. It's industry-wide. 4 major insurers using the same recovery probability model, all sourced from a consulting firm receiving $12 million annually from those same insurers. Hospital CFOs get bonuses for resource optimization. I Hartwell personally received $340,000 in efficiency consulting from Hartford over 6 years. Local journalist Rebecca Torres received an anonymous tip that Thursday, the kind that defined careers. Insurance company forcing 73 families to end life support, documents attached, patterns clear. She called Marcus that evening. Can I interview you? After Friday. If I lose, there's no story. If I win, everyone needs to know. Thursday night, Marcus tucked Lily into bed with the weight of tomorrow pressing against his chest. Daddy, what happens if the bad people win? Then we find another way. But what if Mommy has to leave St. Catherine's? I promised her I'd take care of her. I'll keep that promise, whatever it takes. Even if it's really hard, especially then. That's what promises mean. Lily wrapped her arms around his neck with the fierce strength of children who understand more than adults credit. I love you, Daddy. You're the bravest person I know. Marcus visited Jennifer that final evening before the hearing. He'd read her the romance novel's last chapter, the reunion scene where separated lovers finally found each other. His voice cracked on the final paragraph. Tomorrow decides everything, but I want you to know I'd do it all again. Every late night, every bill, every fight. Because you're worth it. You've always been worth it. Jennifer's fingers twitched. Marcus froze, his breath catching. He called for the nurse, watched monitors spike with increased EEG activity. Dr. Chen arrived within minutes, studied the readings with the careful attention of someone who'd stopped believing in miracles years ago. In this pattern, we haven't seen this before. Her brain is responding to your voice. Marcus leaned close, whispering against Jennifer's ear. You hear me. You've always heard me. The war room assembled for final review at midnight. Olivia, Chen, Marcus, surrounded by evidence that could dismantle an industry or disappear into bureaucratic indifference depending on tomorrow's outcome. 147 pages. 23 witness depositions. Federal statutes highlighted in yellow. Chen's experience versus Harvard corporate attorneys. We have enough to win. But Catherine will bring Wilson and Cross, top litigation firm in Boston. Marcus closed the evidence binder with finality. I have something they don't. What? The truth. And 72 families who refuse to give up. Marcus's phone vibrated at 1 a.m. Text from St. Catherine's. Jennifer's vitals improving. Glasgow coma scale increased from 3 to 5. Dr. Chen recommends extended neurological evaluation. The second text arrived 10 seconds later, this one from Hartford's legal team. Emergency motion filed. Hearing moved to tomorrow 8 a.m. Marcus stood in his apartment surrounded by evidence and hope, 18 hours from the confrontation that would determine whether promises still meant something in a world that measured everything by quarterly returns. Lily slept peacefully down the hall. Jennifer showed signs of waking after 1,472 days. 72 other families waited for someone to prove their loved ones still mattered. Tomorrow morning, Marcus Thompson would walk into that hearing room and reveal who he'd been before grief and devotion had transformed him. Tomorrow, the system that profited from suffering would face someone who understood its architecture because he'd helped build it. Tomorrow, everything changed. The State Insurance Commission hearing room occupied the third floor of a government building that smelled like bureaucracy and floor polish. Commissioner Margaret Stevens, 65 years old, and black, former federal judge with 30 years deciding cases that shaped policy, presided from an elevated bench that put her eye level with truth and evasion alike. Hartford deployed 4 attorneys from Wilson and Cross, their suits costing more than Marcus earned in a month. Catherine Walsh sat rigid in the front row, flanked by Dr. a Hartwell whose silver hair projected authority his ethics had forfeited years ago. 23 families filled the gallery, parents and siblings who'd driven from across Illinois because someone had finally decided to fight. Lily occupied the front row, clutching a photograph of her mother, the one from their last vacation before the accident. Olivia sat beside her, one hand resting on the child's shoulder. David Preston, Hartford's lead counsel, opened with the precision of someone who'd won this argument 100 times before. Commissioner Stevens, this concerns medical reality, not sentiment. Jennifer Thompson has been in persistent vegetative state for 1,472 days. Statistical recovery probability, 0.003%. Essentially impossible. And Hartford has paid $538,000, far exceeding contractual obligations. Continued coverage establishes dangerous precedent. Unlimited care, regardless of medical futility. Attorney Chen stood with the measured confidence of someone holding aces. This concerns a $4.7 billion corporation systematically denying care to maximize profit. 73 families, 71 of them minorities, 68 working class, targeted for termination. A 30-year conspiracy to convert tragedy into quarterly earnings. And one man who refused to let them continue. Chen projected Hartford's 2008 internal memo onto the screen behind Stevens's bench. Exhibit A. Automatic denial after 18 months for persistent vegetative state patients. No individual medical review. A direct violation of ERISA Section 503 requiring claims-specific evaluation. Dr. Sarah Kim took the stand, her voice carrying the weight of 400 denials she'd processed without ever seeing patient files. Decisions made by algorithm, rubber-stamped by supervisors. Average review time, 2.3 minutes per case. I never questioned it until my own daughter suffered traumatic brain injury last year. Then I understood what I'd participated in. Chen advanced to statistical evidence, and the chart filled the projection screen with data that reduced human suffering to mathematical proof. Hartford approval rates: 67% white families, 33% minority. Denial rates: 24% white, 76% minority. The probability this distribution is random, less than 0.001%. Preston objected with the reflexive defensiveness of someone watching carefully constructed arguments collapse. Correlation isn't causation. Chen cut through with email evidence, Catherine Walsh's words projected for everyone to witness. Exhibit C, email from Ms. Walsh to regional directors. Focused denial efforts on cases unlikely to generate legal challenge, specifically low-income, language barriers, single parents. Catherine shifted in her seat, color draining from her face. Stevens leaned forward. Context for targeting poor families? Please enlighten us. Chen turned toward Marcus with the expression of someone about to detonate carefully placed charges. Commissioner, I'd like to call Marcus Thompson to testify. Marcus stood, to walk to the witness stand with the particular calm of someone who'd already survived worse than public exposure. Preston rose immediately. Mr. Thompson isn't qualified to testify on insurance law. Let me establish his credentials. Chen's voice carried the satisfaction of revealing what Hartford had never investigated. Mr. Thompson, please state your educational background. Georgetown University, summa cum laude, 2009. Harvard Law School, 2012. Passed the California and Massachusetts bar that same year. Audible gasps rippled through the courtroom. Olivia's eyes widened despite having known he practiced law. She hadn't known about Harvard. Preston's expression transformed from confidence to calculation, recognizing too late that they'd underestimated their opponent. Your employment from 2012 to 2020? Morrison and Fields, LLP. The insurance defense. I represented companies like Hartford in denial cases, specialized in ERISA litigation. Catherine Walsh's composure shattered like porcelain dropped on concrete. Why did you leave? My wife Jennifer was hit by a drunk driver March 2020. Traumatic brain injury left her in a coma. I submitted her insurance claim to Hartford. It was denied in 2.1 minutes by Dr. Richard Hartwell, the same physician who'd approved 300 denials I defended in court. I recognized the system I'd helped build. I quit because I couldn't be part of it anymore. Marcus produced his evidence binder, 400 pages documenting institutional cruelty with the precision of someone who understood exactly where bodies were buried. Exhibit D. The analysis of 73 current denials showing 847 distinct violations. Case 17, denied without neurologist consultation, violates 29 CFR 256.0.503-1, H3. Case 31, denial based on 1998 recovery data, fraudulent medical basis. Case 58, family not provided appeal rights, ERISA Section 503(2) violation. He walked through each statute with surgical accuracy, and Preston's attempts to interrupt collapsed against Marcus's command of federal law. This wasn't an analyst pretending to understand regulations. This was someone who'd spent 3 years defending these exact tactics. I know every loophole, every illegal shortcut, every way insurance companies circumvent patient protection laws. I've documented 847 violations across these 73 cases because I spent my career learning how to exploit those same gaps. Chen's final question landed with devastating simplicity. Why are you here, Mr. Thompson? Because 72 other families deserve the same chance I'm fighting for. My wife's Glasgow coma scale improved from 3 to 5 this week. After 1,472 days, she's responding because we didn't give up. How many of these 73 families would witness recovery if given that chance? Marcus turned toward Catherine, his voice devoid of anger, carrying only the weight of someone who'd measured the cost of her decisions in human terms. You asked me to drop this case, save only Jennifer, but my daughter is watching. She needs to learn you don't save yourself by abandoning others. Lily nodded from the gallery, tears streaming down her face. Some promises don't have expiration dates. The promise to care for my wife. The promise to fight for what's right. My promise to these 72 families. I won't stop until they have justice. Stevens reviewed documents in silence that stretched like wire. Finally, she removed her reading glasses and addressed Catherine with the particular coldness reserved for institutional predators. Ms. Walsh, I've reviewed Mr. Thompson's evidence. This represents the clearest case of systematic bad faith I've encountered in 30 years on the bench. Hartford Insurance is hereby ordered to immediately reinstate coverage for all 73 families, pay $50,000 penalty per violation, totaling $42.3 million. Submit to independent medical review for all future denials. Cease discriminatory practices effective immediately. She paused, and her next words carried the weight of consequence. I'm referring this matter to the Department of Justice for criminal investigation under RICO statutes. Preston rose with the desperate energy of someone watching career-defining cases evaporate. We'll appeal to federal court, appeal wherever you want. But these families get coverage starting today. Security escorted Catherine from the courtroom. She passed Marcus at the witness stand, her voice barely whisper. You've destroyed my career. Marcus met her eyes without triumph, only exhausted finality. You destroyed 73 families. Mine is just recovering. The gallery erupted. Families embraced, sobbed. Home released 4 years of accumulated grief and terror. A Hispanic father grabbed Marcus's hand. Mi hijo, my son, 19 years old, 3 years in coma. They said, terminate next month. You saved him. An elderly black grandmother pulled Marcus into a hug that smelled like cocoa butter and gratitude. My granddaughter. Thank you. God sent you to us. Marcus's phone vibrated in his pocket. Text from St. Catherine's. Jennifer's eyes opened. She's asking for you. He showed the message to Chen, to Olivia, then ran. St. Catherine's had never seemed so far away. Marcus burst through the entrance, sprinted down the east corridor, and entered room 217 to find Dr. Chen adjusting monitors while Jennifer's eyes tracked movement. Her voice came hoarse from years of silence, each word costing effort that Marcus would spend lifetimes repaying. You kept your promise. Marcus collapsed into the chair beside her bed, taking her hand in both of his, feeling her fingers squeeze back with intentional strength. Always. I always will. Lily arrived minutes later, Olivia driving her from the courthouse at speeds that violated multiple traffic laws. The child froze in the doorway until Jennifer's eyes found her. Mommy? The family embraced around Jennifer's hospital bed, 4 years of waiting condensing into a moment that medical science had declared statistically impossible, but love had insisted remained probable. 6 months transformed landscape. Federal prosecutors charged Catherine Walsh with fraud and racketeering, 15 years maximum. Dr. Hartwell faced medical fraud charges, $4.2 million restitution, 8 years recommended. Hartford's CEO resigned under pressure. The company settled for $847 million across 2,847 historical cases. California Assembly Bill 2847, Jennifer's Law, mandated independent medical review for all persistent vegetative state coverage decisions, created Patient Advocate Fund, banned financial incentives tied to denial rates. Marcus testified at the state capitol with Jennifer in a wheelchair beside him, Lily holding her mother's hand. The governor signed legislation that 12 other states would adopt within 18 months. Outcomes for the 73 families appeared in research journals. 19 patients regained consciousness. 41 remained in care with families maintaining hope. 13 passed peacefully with loved ones present. 0 forced terminations. And the Promise Keepers Coalition grew to 400 families nationwide. Marcus speaking at their inaugural meeting about the power of refusing to accept institutional cruelty as inevitable. Olivia redirected Brennan and Associates toward profit with purpose, establishing pro bono legal funds, and learning that success wasn't measured by corner offices, but by what you stood for when standing cost everything. The beach stretched empty in the autumn afternoon. Same location Lily had drawn 100 times during the years her mother slept. Jennifer walked slowly with a walker, her speech still rebuilding, but communication improving daily. She wore the yellow sundress from Lily's crayon drawings, the one she'd worn before the accident transformed their lives. Lily built sandcastles while Marcus pushed Jennifer's walker across sand toward water's edge. The ocean stretched infinite, and Jennifer paused to watch waves collapse against shore. You gave up everything for me. I gave up nothing. I gained everything that matters. Those families. Was it worth fighting? Marcus smiled, the expression containing 4 years of accumulated exhaustion and triumph. Ask me if I'd do it again. Would you? Every single time. Lily approached with seashells collected in her t-shirt, 9 years old now, gap tooth replaced by permanent teeth. Daddy, my teacher wants me to write about heroes. Who will you choose? You. Because you taught me promises are worth keeping, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Marcus pulled his daughter close, then helped Jennifer stand from the walker, and they stood together as family, the photograph from Lily's drawings made real through persistence that institutions had declared futile. The sunset painted the water gold and orange, and Marcus understood that they'd asked the wrong question all along. Not why he wouldn't date, not why he refused promotions, not why he left at 5:30. The answer had always been simple. When you find what's worth fighting for, you fight. Not for yourself alone, but for everyone who can't. That wasn't sacrifice. That was love. And love, Marcus had learned, was the only statistical probability that mattered. They walked together into the fading light, 3 figures against the ocean, and somewhere across the country, almost 2,847 families continued healing because one man had refused to accept that some lives could be measured in quarterly returns and cost-benefit analyses. The fight continued, the promises held, and that was enough.